There's something about that song that speaks to me emotionally. I think if I was to get to the heart of what speaks to it emotionally about me is like, I don't know if I have like a Woody and Buzz type of friendship in my life. I'm gonna get serious right away. I'm just gonna skip to it. Normally we do something funny. Listen, here's what I'm gonna say. I'm actually not convinced you guys have very good friends. Can I say that? Sorry, just own that. Sit on that for a second. I'm actually not convinced that I have very good friends. Like adults don't have good friends either. I think the reality is over the last couple years, what's happened in society is we've replaced quality friends with quantity of friends. We've moved away from like a few intentional, life-giving friends to convincing ourselves that we have tons of friends out there. We sit in rooms like this, I don't know, like you're sitting in a space with a bunch of people, and yet, I think the reality is if I were to ask, I think that probably half the people in this room or any room wherever you're at would articulate that, Jake, when I'm honest, I think I would say that I struggle with being lonely. And I'm to be honest, I don't even think I'm guessing. Actually, statistically, it would say that it's basically 50%. Recently, the World Health Organization just said that they're considering loneliness, it's considered right now to be like an epidemic. It's a problem that is sweeping everywhere. Harvard did a study, they said 43%, that's almost half of this room, of young adults would say that since the pandemic, they would say, man, I'm way more lonely than I used to be. They also said that 50% of people, young adults, said that in the last 2 weeks, and think about this could be you. In the last 2 weeks, nobody has intentionally looked at you, sat down with you, and had a conversation actually asking you how you're doing. Like not just surface level stuff, but like deep, intentional, actual conversation. And it scares me a little bit because it's not just a student problem, it's like an American problem. And the way that we've been choosing to do friendship it's obviously broken. It's obviously broken. And I think potentially the reason there's an epidemic of friends is like of loneliness is because we're really bad at friendship. In fact, you know what we're really good at though? We're really good at bailing on friendships. That's like our best skill set. We're really good at running away from relationships. And we're so good at it that I decided to make a list of why we're good at it. So here are two specific reasons that we were really good at bailing on friendships. The first thing is this, ways that we bail. The first way is this, we avoid. Here's why we avoid friendships. I think we do this all the time. We avoid them because we're afraid. We avoid a person because we're afraid of conflict. This happens all the time. This could be like, hey, so I'm friends with this girl, but she's friends with this other girl, and this other girl posted a comment about me a few weeks ago, and it was like, I didn't really like it. I read into it, didn't love what it said. And so I obviously can't see her, but now because she's friends with my friend, I can't see my friend either because I can't have an actual conversation with them. How can you be friends with this person? And so instead of just having a little conversation and saving that friendship, we would rather just be like, avoid it, move on. We avoid friendships because we're afraid of conflict. Maybe you're not afraid of conflict. Maybe for you, you're actually you're afraid of being honest. The reality is like, I don't know. I don't see someone over here. There's probably someone literally right in this circle. I don't know, but I'll point right here. There's someone over here that is like, he's the perfect person. Captain of the team, dating the best girl, got the best family. Everybody would look at him and say he's got his life together. And when he goes home and he sits in his room, he would say, Jake, I'm struggling. I'm having a difficult time coping. But instead of being honest, instead of letting someone in, he'd rather just avoid anybody that wants to get too close to him. I can't let them see past the facade that I've built. I don't know, maybe you're not afraid of conflict. Maybe you're not afraid of being honest. Honestly, maybe a lot of us run away from friendships because we're afraid of them telling us what we're doing is wrong. And I think this is fun. I would say this. I would say most of the time we do things that are stupid, we know they're stupid, right? Like we're not idiots. Like there's a whole bunch of people, I guarantee you right now that, hey, I've been going to church my whole life. I follow Jesus. I would describe myself as someone who has great character. I know what the Bible stands for, but I also know that 3 weeks ago I got invited to a party and I started drinking. And I'm not gonna get into the weeds on drinking and what the Bible says. The reality is you ain't 21, you shouldn't be drinking. The law says. I'm looking around and know a lot of you are drinking. I'm not an idiot. And you just started doing it, but now your friend isn't. And you know you shouldn't be doing it, but you also know if you tell them, they're gonna tell you that you shouldn't be doing the thing you already know you should be doing. And so instead of leaning into that, you just cut them off. I'm moving on, I'm done, I avoid you. We're good at it. We're good at running away from friendships. Maybe you're sitting right now, I'm like, hey Jake, I actually don't do any of those things. I'm pretty awesome. Good for you. Here's what I'd say. Then you probably are good at doing this other thing. The way that you bail on friendships, you don't cut people out, you just slowly drift away. And you slowly drift away because it's easier. And some of you just do it, if I'm being honest, some of you just do it because you're lazy. Like you met this, like you hung out with this guy at school, and it was cool, and you found out you play the same video game, you're playing like COD, I don't know if that's cool anymore, I'm old. What do y'all play? What video games do you guys play? Call of Duty? World of Warcraft? Killing it. Okay, so relevant. All right, so and like, hey, let's hop online, let's play, dog. And then all of a sudden, it's been a few weeks, and you're just lazy, man. You haven't shot them a text, and you start playing this game where you're like, well, they haven't texted me either. Like, they should text me first. And we're just lazy, and all of a sudden, this person that could be a friend in our life is just gone because we drifted away. Because we're lazy. I mean, maybe for you, you drift away because you're just oblivious. I know this happens all the time. This idea, like, it doesn't register to you that the concept of, like, I'm with this group of friends, and then I date a new girl, and now I go to this group of friends, and then I date a new girl, and I go to this group of friends. And then, like, I didn't like them because I like this group better, and I, like, wander over here. And you're oblivious that if you just spend your whole years of high school with different friends, that when you graduate, you will literally have no friends. And you've convinced yourself that you're not lonely because of the amount of people you're hanging out with, but the reality is you have no conversations past a surface level because you're just drifting. I think, unfortunately, the reason a lot of us drift is actually because, like, we don't think we're selfish because we're not cutting people out, but we're actually just really selfish. We're just nicer about it. We see, like, our friend group, and then we see this friend group that's cooler than our friend group. And this friend group has a boy in it that I could maybe date if I was in this friend group, but not in this friend group. How do I get in this friend group? And you don't, like, text anybody and tell them because that would be, like, crazy. You wouldn't tell them you're doing that. You're just, like, you're doing it on the sly. You're drifting, trying to get yourself into this other group. You might be drifting towards someone, or you might be doing the other thing. You might be drifting away from that person who's, like, now in this group down here, and you're like, please no. Get away from them. The reality is there's an epidemic of loneliness because we are professionals at leaving friendships. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this series because I think it's practical. I think it's real. And I think friendships are a thing that you can't just hope they get better. I think you have to put some effort into your friendships to have any shot. And so what we're gonna do these next 4 weeks is we're gonna look at different friends in the Bible, and we're gonna try to pull some traits, hopefully, from their life that we can apply to our own life. And so we're gonna jump into that in a second. Before we do, let me help you, like, narrow your focus here. I think what you initially are doing right now is you're thinking of your friends like big, plural friends. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to narrow your focus a little bit. Someone said this. There's people that you invite to your wedding, and there's people that stand in your wedding. Some of you are like, marriage, that's far away. I don't understand. You get the picture. But I would even go a step further than that. It's not even the ones you're close with. You gotta ask yourself, like, is the people I'm talking about, the friends I wanna have, the friends that on the other end of this work are gonna fill me with life, are gonna make me more like Jesus, are gonna push me to be better? The friendships you wanna fight for, you wanna make sure that they're wise, they're someone that loves Jesus. And you gotta make sure also there's someone that also wants to work on their friendship. So, like, hopefully in the scope of this series, that's what I want you to think about. Like, those are the ones we're talking about. And then I'll just say this one more thing before we go. This is not a series like for your friend to listen to. This is a you series. You wanna know why your friendships are bad? Don't look at them, look at you. Look at me. The reason my friendships are not doing great right now is not because of my friends, it's because of me. And if you walk through this whole series thinking about what your friends should be doing different, you're wasting your time. This is a waste of your time. It's about you. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna jump into Ruth. Here's the deal with Ruth. Ruth is awesome. You should care, you should read it. We're only gonna look at the first chapter of Ruth. So here's what I'm gonna tell you to do. You should read Ruth on your own this week. It's only 4 chapters, you can do it. I say this all the time, but if you're just showing up on Sundays and you're just hoping for me to tell you what's in the Bible, also, this is a waste of your time. Like, get in this thing. Open this book up. We actually make it super easy. Every single week in your small group content, there is a Bible plan that's there for you that you could read with your friends. It's there for you. We make it really easy. We'd love for you to engage in Scripture. But here's what you need to know about Ruth. Ruth is the story of someone named Ruth who God worked in her life. And you need to listen to the whole story. We're just gonna talk about the first chapter. In order to understand Ruth, you first have to understand her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law's name is Naomi. Naomi is married. After she's married, she has 2 sons. Those 2 sons get married, one to Ruth and then one to Ruth's sister-in-law. They're married. It's great. They're starting to build a good friendship together, the 3 of them. Well, the husbands too, but I'm not really sure this is about them. Then, tragically, Naomi's husband dies. Bummer. And then both of her sons die too. So now it's just Naomi and her 2 daughters-in-laws. And at this time, Naomi's starting to realize, like, hey, I should let these 2 daughters go. I should let them leave because life with me is gonna be hard. At this time, if you're a female, like, you really need to be married to someone to like have a chance. Which, shout out to now, that is not the case. But at this point, Naomi's processing like, hey, they would be better off without me. They'd be better off to go to their home country to find a place to reconnect, to find a new husband. And so she's starting to think, hey, you guys should just leave. And Ruth and her sister-in-law, they do this thing right away when someone says, hey, you should go. They do the like, no, I'm gonna stay. And here's what I mean. I think what they're doing is the thing that you do when you first get a job. If you've had a job, how many of you like started working, maybe you're working at like QT, and you get a job, and then now you take your dad, like you and your dad are going out to like ice cream, and you do the thing where it's like, oh, hey, let me get this one, Pops. But what you're really saying is, please, you pay. You're just offering. It's the like, let me get this one, Pops. And then you're hoping that he's gonna look at it and be like, no, I got it. And then you go, oh yeah, you should get it. Like, that's what I kind of feel like Ruth and her sister-in-law are doing. Like, oh, of course we'll stay with you. Hoping that Naomi would follow it up with like, no, hey, you really should go. And that's what Naomi does. She actually follows it up with that. She says this in Ruth chapter 1, verse 11. She says this, hey, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I gonna have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I'm too old to have another husband. And even if I did, and there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to 2 sons, would you wait around until they grew up? It was a wild story. Don't read into that a little bit. Would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than it is for you because the Lord's hand has gone away from me. The reality is this, Naomi is aware and she feels like, hey, God has removed his hand from their life. And she's saying, you guys gotta go. And I think if this was in 2024, what would happen is they would for sure leave, 100% chance. Because like I said before, we're professionals at leaving. And Naomi just gave them an excuse. Hey, I'm telling you to go. It would be so much easier for them to go. Because they'd go back to their homeland. They'd be able to know people. They don't have to care for this older lady and themselves. It'd be safer. How scary would it be to your only connection to a life that like has a chance has passed away? All your connections have died. And now you're just choosing to stick around. And the reality is that Ruth's sister-in-law chooses to leave. She chooses to do the thing that I think most of us would do in that scenario. And the reality, like the point of this message isn't complicated. You guys are smart. You already know what I'm gonna say. But Ruth does the thing that is the easiest thing to say you're gonna do, but the actual hardest thing to actually do. And Ruth, when you read Ruth, this is like a halftime speech material. Ruth is fired up right now. Ruth is preaching in this moment. She says this. This is verse 16. But Ruth replied, I picture her just being amped right now. Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me ever so severely if anything but death separates you and me. Like this is legit. This is a moment that fires me up. When you lost movies, there's a reason you love Toy Story. Because Woody and Buzz, man, they fought for each other. I'm a nerd. I love me some Lord of the Rings. There's a scene in Lord of the Rings where Frodo at the end, he's going, hey, listen, Sam, you stay behind. I got to go to Mordor alone. And Sam goes, yeah, you got to go alone, but I'm coming with you. And you're like, yeah, fight for your friends. Stay with people. Be inspired. Get fired up. And you read this, and Ruth is like, you're like, oh, come on. I want to be more like Ruth. And it's easy, man, it's easy. If we want to be Christ-centered friends that fight for our relationships and our friendships, we just have to be a Christ-centered friend that stays. It's simple on paper. Be a Christ-centered friend that stays. I could be done. Just do better at that. It's easy. This is this week. How to friendship. Week 1, stay. Week 2. I'm not going to tell you week 2. You got to come back. Tease. The problem isn't that you don't know that, though. Like when I say stay, the problem is that you're not like, oh, great point, Jake. The issue is that you don't. The issue is you say you want to stay, and then as soon as it's hard, you run. So, listen, you're going to go to your groups in a second, and I hope that you have honest conversations about how you could do this better. But I'm going to give you 2 practical things that I think would help. The first is this. If you want to be a Christ-centered friend, if you want to stay, here's a way to stay. The first thing is this. You got to pre-decide. You got to pre-decide to stay. When we were a little younger, we had a daughter. She was young enough where she couldn't swim. She's probably like 2. We had a pool in our backyard. And I'm in the backyard. It's probably wintertime, so it's cold. And I'm cleaning our pool out. This makes me seem like I clean my pool a lot. I did not. It's a fun story, though. I was actually doing my job. So I'm cleaning this pool. I'm on the backside, and my daughter is outside with me on the pool, like on the side of the pool as a 2-year-old, like playing in the water. And I'm just chilling on the other side of the pool. No big deal. And I remember this, my wife, we have a sliding door. My wife, Bree, love her. She all of a sudden out of nowhere, like flies the door open, and she sticks her head out. She says, hey, if she falls in there, are you going to jump in after her? And I do one of these, I go, yeah. Like, of course I am. I know, of course I'm jumping in. I pre-decided as soon as my daughter was born that I'm going to love her. That I'm not afraid of the water being cold. I'm not afraid of getting my clothes wet. I pre-decided that I'm going in for her because I value that relationship. And the reality is oftentimes if you want a friendship that gets through to the other side, there's gonna be moments that are hard. There's gonna be moments that are difficult. And if you wait till it's difficult to decide if you're gonna stay, you're always gonna bail. Pre-decided. Jesus is the best example of this. He shows up. The plan from the very beginning is to get up on the cross. He shows up. He does what he's supposed to do. And the last thing he says before he leaves, he says this in Matthew. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. That guy stays. You want to be a better friend? Pre-decide. Second thing is simply this. If you're a person that tends to drift, if you're a person that tends to like slowly bail on relationships, here's what I would just tell you. Just show up. Just show up. I was talking to Steven, he's one of our student pastors in Levine the other day, and he's telling me a story of one of his students. And this, I'm sure resonates with a lot of you. One of his students' good friends had someone close to them pass away. And this student desperately wants to be Jesus to this kid. And he's asking Stephen, like, hey, like, what do I do? What do I say? How do I do the right thing? And Stephen, he's telling me on the phone, he just goes, hey, I just told him, man, it doesn't really matter what you say. They're not really going to remember. You're probably going to say the wrong thing. What they're going to remember is if you just show up. And the kid, he says the thing that you're probably thinking right now. He's like, wait, it can't be that simple. And Stephen, I love this. He says on the phone, he goes, man, I just told this kid, I said, man, I've made a career out of showing up. And that fires me up. That a pastor on our staff gets it. You want to be Jesus? You want to fight for your friends? Oftentimes, the simplest thing you got to do is when you don't want to, just show up. Just get in there. Be present. I think we have the student ministry that can put a dent on loneliness. I really do. Like, could you imagine if we were a student ministry that cared about our friends, that pushed past conflict, that showed up, that pre-decided to care, that opened our circles up, that brought people in? That's the stuff that excites me. Let's be Christ-centered friends that stay. Let me pray for us. Dear Jesus, you're good. And your example inspires and encourages. Thank you for that. Jesus, put the name of someone on our heart that we need to invest in this week. Give us the grit to show up. Let us be students that don't just walk away when it gets difficult, but students that stay. We love you so much. In your name, amen.